Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. My mother used to tell me that if you found something you love doing for a career, you'll never work a day in your life. Fortunately, I found that in what I do every day, and I have to think that our guest today feels the same way. As a hunter and native Missourian who works in the ammunition business, Aaron Oelger gets to apply his passion for his hobbies with his job as Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Hodgdon Powder, a major distributor of smokeless powder for the ammunition industry. Aaron has a long career in the sporting goods business with a couple of significant players, and he knows how to deliver proven performance. Listen in for Aaron's insight on what's working in strategic marketing today, what it takes to be a good marketer, and an inside look into the enthusiast industry in which he works. Welcome to Outdrive, Aaron.
Thanks for having me in.
I've been looking forward to visiting with you and reconnecting and finding out what's going on with you and with Hodgdon Powder. I want to talk about the industry you work in. I mean, it's an industry for enthusiasts, and I think that's very exciting. You have such a great background and experience in marketing, so I want to talk strategy with you a little bit. And then I know you got some projects working on your farm in Missouri, so I want to get to that too. But before we go down that road, let's just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Sure. Well, thanks again. My name is Aaron Oelger. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Hodgdon Gunpowder. So a little bit about me. I'm a fifth-generation Missourian, born in St. Louis, kind of raised all over the state. My dad was a pastor and got transferred around to different churches around the state. And so I was lucky enough to get to live around most of the state. I've lived for the last 10 years or so just outside of Kansas City, kind of in a rural area north of Pleasant Hill. So my wife and I live on about 4 acres there. And I work in Shawnee, Kansas. Hodgdon is headquartered in Shawnee, which is a suburb on the western edge of Kansas City. So I get to work outside of Kansas City and then spend a lot of time in my home state playing. So that's kind of what I do.
Live, work, and play. So you work in the shot industry, shooting, hunting, and outdoor sports, sporting goods. What attracted you to this industry?
That's a great question. So it's a long story. Let me try to abbreviate it. I went to grad school about 25 years ago. I went to grad school. And I remember when I was in grad school, I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do after. And I'd read an article about MBAs. You should look for an industry where there's not a lot of other MBAs in it. And so I started looking around while I was in grad school and was working for a startup. And the startup went very, very well. And we were moving on to a new campus. And so I was moving in, it was move-in day, and I was moving in and I came walking into the door with 2 pieces of taxidermy, 2 ducks. I was a duck hunter and I had ducks under my arm, and the security guard stopped me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm moving in." And he said, "You can't bring those in here. Those are offensive." And that was kind of the crystal moment for me where I decided I need to find an industry to work in where these aren't offensive, because this is who I am. I hunt, I fish. I don't really golf. I don't ski. I don't do any of those things. I hunt and fish and shoot. And so that was kind of my crystal moment for deciding I needed to do something different. I was very strategic in how I approached it. And it took me a couple of years to get the right role. But I've been in this industry now for about 18 or 19 years.
I think that advice that you just gave to people that are getting ready to get out of school about looking for careers where there are more opportunities than others is very insightful, very insightful. So you've been in it all this time. What's kept you engaged?
I think a lot of different things. I've had a lot of different roles over the last 18 years or so. I've worked for 3 different companies and in the outdoor space. And I enjoy working in the outdoor industry. I've been on the manufacturer side. I've been as a retailer, and now I work again for a manufacturer. And I enjoy that. I like the challenge day to day. I tell you what's kept me, I've been at Hodgdon Powder for 7 years, going on 8. I think I really found a home there. I really like the Hodgdon family. They're really, they treat their people very well. So I like working for the family. I like the work that we do. We're a small business, in terms of headcount, we're less than 90 employees for all of Hodgdon Powder. So my marketing department is me. My sales department is 4 other folks, one of which kind of helps me on the marketing side. Well, maybe 2 of them work on the marketing side a little bit, but we're a very small team, so I get to wear a lot of hats. Every day is challenging. And I really love the challenge of that kind of day-to-day managing the business. It's not something that's boring. I don't work in a corporate environment. We're very buttoned up. We're very professional, but it's also very much a family atmosphere. We're dog friendly. And so for somebody who likes hunting dogs like I do, every day there's 2 or 3 or 4 hunting dogs in the office. And, that type of family atmosphere where you have a challenging set of goals to accomplish, but you work for a family that really wants to reward employees. I think that's a pretty magical place, especially anymore. There's a lot of corporations, and we've seen a lot of private equity move into the shooting, hunting, and outdoor space over the last 20 years. But this is the best combination of challenges and resources and quality of people that I get to work around that I've ever seen in my career. It's a pretty magical place.
Sounds like you're in a great place. Tell us a little bit about your marketing mix, products, how they're distributed, and how you promote them.
Sure. So we predominantly work in the smokeless space, and our powder is really made for people who are hand loading their own ammunition. So we own 4 brands in the smokeless space, and we license another. So we own Hodgdon, IMR, Accurate, and Ramshot. And then we license the Winchester brand from the Olin Corporation. And then on the muzzleloading side, we have 4 other brands there that we manage. So I manage each of those brands. And part of my responsibility is trying to figure out how to distribute those most effectively. So most of our distribution, we do some straight to retail. We do quite a bit of 2-step wholesale distribution. So really, that's kind of the area of focus that I have, either selling it direct to retailers or selling it to wholesalers. That being said, we made a strategic decision, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago, to start looking at direct consumer sales. And we spent about 18 months on that process. We had to redo all of our websites to make them capable to go D2C. And we launched that 3 years ago in July. So almost 3 years ago, we launched direct to consumer. And we really do that as a strategic move more than anything. It's not necessarily a play for margin or sales. It is really a play to make sure that not all of our retailers are going to handle all of our product line. And I want us to have all of our product line because we offer a lot of SKUs for different powders. And I understand that not especially every brick and mortar may not be able to carry all of our SKUs, but I want us to carry all of our SKUs. And so that's really why we do D2C. But I spend most of my time selling to retailers and wholesalers across the United States.
And from a marketing standpoint, how do you tell your story best?
The fun thing about Hodgdon is the story really tells itself. So I think that for most consumers who are using smokeless powder to load their own ammunition, they're familiar with at least one of our brands, and it's most likely going to be Hodgdon. But we have a lot of customers that, I myself was a hand loader before I got into this business. And, I use the powders that my dad taught me to use when I was a kid. My dad reloaded and taught me how to reload. A lot of the powders that I use today were the ones that he recommended. And so it's actually the powders really almost market themselves. And as you and I were talking offline earlier, we own a lot of the market share. The chances are if you're a reloader, there's really not a lot of other powders out there that you can use other than the ones that we manage. We do have some competition, but I think the majority of consumers are using our products to hand load their ammunition. And we also have a lot of really great relationships with manufacturers of pieces of brass or primers or bullets. And those relationships are really important to us. When we got into this business, we turned 75 a couple of years ago. And our founder was very instrumental in partnering with other manufacturers in the industry to teach people how to reload ammunition. And he called these reloading road shows. And we still do these today, where we send people out on the road to go to different, mostly small gun shops, and train 15, 20, 25 people on how to load ammunition. And so I think that, yes, our products are well known and we have a great reputation, but you can't rest on your laurels. It's always about, what are you doing today? And some of what we do today is what we've done for the last 75 years. So it's a pretty interesting challenge to have, but one that makes it fun to come into work every day.
So in most businesses, there are other types of challenges. What kind of other challenges do you face from time to time?
For us, transportation is always a challenge, right? Getting raw products in and getting finished products out, that's always a challenge. Our industry, the shooting, hunting, and outdoor space, has faced a lot of regulation. There's a lot of regulatory challenges to overcome. And so certainly those are a part of the business. But one of the things, and I guess probably thirdly, is resources. Every business has a hard time hiring right now, it seems like. I think one of the fortunate things that we do is the Hodgdon family takes such good care of employees. When I arrived at Hodgdon, our headquarters staff, there's 15, 16, 17 of us in our headquarters, and most of them have been there for more than 25 years. Now, we've had some turnover due to retirements and we've lost a couple of folks over the last several years, which has been really hard for a family-owned company to go through those losses. But the neat thing about Hodgdon is we have employees that have spent literally their whole careers working for us. And that's a blessing. And it's also a challenge, right? That every day you've got to make sure that you're repaying that trust. And a lot of it is just taking care of people. So yes, we have those challenges that I just laid out there, but our operating environment is a pretty special place to work. So I would like to think that gives us an edge over a lot of other companies that are out there, because I think we do a really nice job taking care of our employees. I mean, I'll tell you personally, Hodgdon is the greatest place that I've ever worked. And it's something that I think that everyone, there's a saying about everyone deserves to have one great hunting dog. And I would say that everyone deserves to have one great employer in their career. And Hodgdon has certainly been mine.
So if there's somebody listening that thinks that Hodgdon might be a good place for them, are you hiring, and how would they go about applying?
Sure. So certainly we put all open positions on our website. So I think that would be a good thing to look at. Now, for us, I would say that one of our challenges is we're so specialized that the skill sets that we look for. So for example, we've been thinking lately about ballistics. So we run a ballistics lab at our lab in Harrington, Kansas. We have a second lab in our facility in Miles City, Montana. And we have several full-time ballisticians that do nothing but develop data. Data is one of the most important assets we have. Think of it as a recipe for how to load ammunition. That's what I mean by developing that data. And that's not a position that you can hire off of the street, right? That's a really, really tough place it's a very specialized skill set. And there just aren't enough of those individuals around the country that are available. So for us, we're taking a long-term strategic view and looking for people who are graduating with certain degrees. Those degrees largely come out of like a mining type operation where they're familiar with propellants and explosives. And we will train them on how to do that job. So we currently have an intern in that we're working with this summer with the idea of when he graduates in a year or two, that would be an opportunity for us to have that person available, because we would like to think that we're going to keep everyone forever, but the reality is at some point everybody retires, and you have to make sure that you have staff ready to go when that person retires. And over the next 5, 6, 7 years, we want to make sure that we're prepared for those key retirements in those key positions.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're making good plans to do that. You mentioned regulatory challenges. I don't know whether you're talking about some of the censoring that occurs, on social media due to your products being firearms related or not, or whether those are more governmental. You want to talk about those at all?
Yeah, it's really everything. I think that it can be challenging to manufacture products like we're offering in this environment. There's a lot of regulation that goes into effect there. There's a lot of regulations that you have to make sure that you're in line with when you're doing a large scale manufacturing operation. And so those are certainly regulations that we pay very close attention to and we're very proactive on. There's lots of regulatory requirements for transporting explosives that fall into the 1,4C or 1,3 category. We have to make sure that we're staying on top of that. There's a lot of regulations anymore, just it seems like for just about everything. So we're constantly trying to make sure that we're in line, especially as we've started up this new direct-to-consumer operation. There are some states you just can't sell to because of regulations. And we want to make sure that Hodgdons are very much part of our values is making sure that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons. And so we want to make sure that we may not necessarily agree with the regulation, but if the regulation is there, we want to make sure that we're in line with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, we were talking earlier and you've talked about some of the success that Hodgdon has enjoyed over the years and how business is strong. And, from your perspective, what does it take to be successful in business today?
Wow, that sounds like something that requires a couple of hours worth of answer. I think there are several pieces to that. I think that you have to have a great brand, and we're very, very blessed that we do. But that brand has been developed over the last 75 years, right? So we have a track record that people can judge us by. I think another piece of being successful is making sure you have the right people in the right positions and are prepared for the future. And I think that we've done a really good job of that, especially over the last couple of decades. We've had really, really good people who've invested a large portion of their career working for us. And you just can't underestimate what talented people can do when they come together as a team. Even in the 7 years that I've been at Hodgdon, I can tell you, though, that we've upgraded just about every major skill position that we have. And the people that have been there, their skill set has improved because we want to make sure that we're investing in those people as well. So I think we've done a really good job of that. So we have a great brand. Now we have great people. And then you just need the opportunity. And, what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years since 2020 has been something that I've never seen in my career before. I've been in the industry for, like I said, 18, 19 years. And I've never seen demand like we've seen over the last 3 years. Now, it looks like that demand is starting to lighten just a little bit, but there's a lot of people who still want ammunition out there. And I think one of the interesting things about these peaks and valleys in demand that we're seeing is frequently when we're at the peak of demand and people cannot find ammunition or they can't find components to load their own ammunition, I think that they say, this is never going to happen to me again. I'm going to make sure that next time I'm prepared and I have the components that I need to manufacture my own ammunition. I think that lesson has been learned by all of us. And I say all of us in that I'm not encouraging hoarding by any means. I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing for anyone, but I think that depends on what your definition of hoarding is. I think your definition and my definition might be a little bit different. So I want to make sure that I can shoot the amount that I want to shoot, and I don't want to have to stop shooting or ration my shooting because supplies and components are so low in supply. So I want to make sure that I have what I need. And I think that most people have now kind of learned that lesson. So even when demand may be lightening a little bit, I still think that we have a pretty good runway in front of us. So I don't think that we're going to see what we saw in 17, 18, and 19. But I also don't think we'll see the demand like we've seen over the last couple of years either.
And what do you feel like is driving that demand? Is it the need for people to want to make sure that they don't run out?
I think that's part of it. I think that there's another part of it. We've seen what's happening in Ukraine, and I think a lot of the world's components are going towards manufacturing either, small caliber ammunition, artillery propellant, or what have you. So I think that there's a bigger demand on the military side, and that takes away from what we have on our side. I think in general, people just want to make sure that they're prepared. Prepping used to be something that was kind of on the fringe of society. And I think that we've shown, especially over the last 3 years, that having a 3-month supply of food or having enough toilet paper isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I think the same thing about ammunition. So I think people think differently about things today than they necessarily would have pre-COVID.
Oh, that's great insight right there. So thinking about you and your role, have you always been a marketing guy? I mean, has that been your role throughout your career?
It has. I mean, my undergraduate degree was in marketing. I went to school and got my MBA specializing in marketing. Most of my early work with startups was on the marketing. I did some work on the operations side, but a lot of work that I did was on the marketing side. And that's really what I'm most interested in. So if you look at my career over the last 20, 25 years, yeah, most of that has been on the marketing side. And I think marketing sometimes gets a bad rap, right? Everybody, I would argue that my role today is sales and marketing. And I would argue that all of us are in sales and marketing, right? Because you're always trying to position yourself in the best way. You're trying to position your products in the best way to those customers. In your home life, you want to present your best side to your spouse, right? We want to take care of our spouses and our families. So I think that can get a bad rap, but all of us are really in sales and marketing roles. And that for me is something that, I mean, I think that way. And I also see a lot of downsides to that in our society. I mean, we've all seen the marketers who've gone, who have jumped the shark. And that's something that you got to really pay attention to, right? You have to be authentic. And I think that's one of the things that's different about our industry is I don't work for a consumer packaged good company. I have had roles in the past. Part of my early career was spent in telecommunications. I did a couple of startups in telecom. And, that's a general product that's meant for everyone. And that is a different marketing approach than marketing to enthusiasts like I do today. If you're working in the hunting industry, that's a niche. If you're working in the reloading business, that's a niche of a niche, right? And so you have to be, above all, you have to be authentic in how you're presenting your products to consumers, because you're marketing to enthusiasts who are going to see right through an inauthentic approach. So you have to do it in the right way. And I think that's the challenge that as a marketer, that's the challenge that you really want to step up to.
Yeah, that authenticity is so important today. I mean, there's just so much fake out there that being authentic can really set you apart from everybody else. What are some other general or specific marketing trends that you're seeing in your role and position at Hodgdon?
So I think a lot of what we do now is built around video, right? So every time we introduce a new product, we always have a video that goes along with that, because that's important in terms of positioning, both digitally and socially. Social is a big part of what we do. And, lots of different people have different feelings or thoughts on social media, but it is a way to engage with your consumer base and do it in the right way. Now, unfortunately for us that work in the shooting business, that has its own set of challenges, right? Because we're not something that a YouTube or a Facebook necessarily wants on their platform. And my sense is that at some point in the near future, we may lose some of those venues for communicating with consumers. And so we'll have to adapt to that. But, we've been hearing for at least a decade that print is dead, and I still do a lot of print. And part of that is knowing who your consumer is. And if you look at my average consumer is, from a demographic, it is most likely male. It is most likely in that, 54 to 58 age bracket. And so if you know who your consumer is, where are they consuming their content? Well, they're probably looking at YouTube if they're a little younger. If they're a little older, they're probably still reading print publications. And so we want to make sure that no matter where they're getting their how-to content, we want to make sure they're getting it from us. So we're making sure that we're on the platforms that they're on.
Yeah, you got to be where they are. Otherwise,
That's right.
you're not going to get them. You mentioned the word passion, and I've always thought that the shot industry was an industry that's driven by passion, passionate people working in an industry and doing things that they love. And so, I have to believe that you're sort of at a dream job, aren't you?
We really are. We're so blessed to be at Hodgdon. I remember when my brother got married, I gave the best man speech, right? And I talked about how my brother introduced us to his fiance on the day that we picked out a new hunting dog. And I talked about how important those two events were, right? And if you think about somebody whose life is built around hunting with dogs, whitetail hunting, turkey hunting, upland hunting, big game hunting, to be in a position where you're helping people prepare for those trips of a lifetime, that's not just a fun job, because it is a fun job, but it's also a pretty remarkable responsibility as well. You want to make sure that you get that right. And I think that an individual who is not an enthusiast is going to struggle working in our business, because you're marketing to enthusiasts like I said before, who are going to see right through an inauthentic approach. So you really have to know what you're doing. And, we talked offline about, we see companies all the time that try to market to our consumers, and they're using a red stag or a roe deer picture during whitetail season because they don't know the difference. To them, it's just a large ungulate, right? They don't know. But an enthusiast consumer base is going to see through that approach. And I'm not saying that we're always perfect. I'm sure that everyone can make mistakes. And Lord knows I've made more than my share. But I think that when you are an enthusiastic brand, a certain amount of responsibility goes along with that.
Yeah. Going right back to authenticity, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talked a little bit about how the team at Hodgdon has kind of evolved over the last few years through mostly natural attrition. When you bring new folks on, what kind of training programs do you have in place to help them move to the next level in terms of their expertise?
So I think it depends on the role. Certainly we have a lot of standard operating procedures if you're working in an operations environment where you're manufacturing propellants or canning propellants, shipping propellants. There's a lot of on-the-job training that comes along with just learning those SOPs. I think that's part of it. I work mostly on the office side of that equation. And for us, I think the biggest thing for us is making sure that we find people that are in alignment with our values. And what I mean by that is we have a certain set of values, and those are available on our website if anyone is interested. So Hodgdon.com, you can go and see what our values are. And those values are something that aren't just words on a page, or in my case, those are actually written on the wall of our office. Those words are how we do our business, right? So if you think about what values do you have? Well, we're accountable to each other. We work in a non-corporate environment. We say what we mean what we say. Those are all values that we share internally. And as we hire, we have to make sure that we're hiring people who share those values. And then we also have a mission, a vision on top of that. And we want to make sure that everyone is organized around our mission and vision so that we're all moving in the same direction. And then we put that all together into a strategic plan that we can share with our staff. And that's not just a document that we present to a board once a year. That's actually how we go about doing our work. And so I think when you have that systematic approach to bringing on board, so hiring and then onboarding individuals, I think that's a good start. And then I think it's just spending a lot of time with people. And I think that's something that's really hard for us and any other small businesses. We all wear a lot of different hats. And we can get so busy that you forget about kind of how important coaching is and leadership. You can't let yourself forget that. That has to be in the forefront all the time. And I think that at different points in my career, I've done better or worse at that. But that's something that I think about an awful lot. And probably something that comes with age is that the older you get, I think the more that you want to pass on the things that you learned with the next generation. I mean, I have a couple of folks working for me right now that are millennials. So I'm not a millennial, obviously, by my gray hair. And working with the next generation is always a challenge in and of itself because they think very much differently than I do. And it's not that one's right or wrong. It's just they think differently. And it's all about how to share with them what I've learned, but it's also about how to learn from them as well. If you think about our customers of tomorrow are millennials today. And so how are we going to be approaching solving the marketing and sales issues for them in the next 5, 10, and 20 years? So it's just an interesting dynamic. But I think if you take care of people, you're going to be in a really good spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think with experience comes that appreciation. And a big part of that is that coaching. But I think early on, you don't necessarily recognize that you need that and can grow and benefit from it. But with a little gray hair, I think you see that appreciation.
Yeah, I also don't think you can ever let it stop, right? I think that, some people, when they get to a certain age, now we think we really do know everything. We probably didn't know it when we were 22, but now that we're in our 50s, we probably know it now. The reality is you can never stop learning, right? I think we all have our blind spots. And I think part of the challenge is being open and accepting to feedback. So I think that there are things, I would hope that my folks say that I'm a good boss. And I'm sure that there are things that I could do better. And I have a pretty good team about providing feedback. And there are things in the way that I approach managing people that I do differently today than I did even 3 years ago. And that's because you have to be constantly learning. I'm a reader. I read a lot of books. I probably will do 35 or 40 books this year. Some of those are on leadership and managing people, and you can never stop learning. So I think no matter what your age, I would hope that when I'm in my 80s, I'm still learning about something, because I don't want to be the individual who stops learning. Bad things happen when you do that.
That is the truth. You get left behind is what happens.
That's right.
So, you've been a marketer your whole career. What makes a good marketer?
I think that there's a lot of different traits that can make a good marketer. I think a big trait would be curiosity, right? You have to be curious as to what's going on in the market, what your consumer looks like, what are they looking for in a product? How can you solve a problem for them? At the end of the day, marketers are really problem solvers, right? It's all about presenting a problem presenting a solution to solve somebody's problem. So I think that being curious is a good trait. I think another trait is being open to learning about new ways. If you think about social media is such a major piece of marketing, that's a major marketing tool today that we have that really didn't exist a decade or two ago, right? And so as marketers, we have to understand what these new tools are. I don't know about you, but I've been playing around with AI. I used an AI tool to start writing press releases and some other things for me. Just as a test, I was interested in how AI works and what it could do for us. And I think that some of the concerns about AI are probably overblown. I don't think that copywriters are going to go away. I don't think that, certainly for enthusiast industries, I don't think AI is a good solution right now. Maybe for normal consumer packaged goods that may work, but I don't think it works for an enthusiast industry because there's too much that the computers just don't understand about us yet. But we have to be opening to using new tools. And so I think that that's probably a second thing. And then I think a third thing would be that you have to get up and do the work, right? I think that it's really easy after you've been doing this for a while, you can kind of put your brain on autopilot. And as a professional marketer, or as really any professional business person today, I just don't think you can do that. I think you have to constantly be pushing for better results, for better information, for a better way of doing things. So I think if you have those three traits, that's probably going to go a long way to help you as a professional marketer.
I agree. Those are great ones. And yeah, I always go with curiosity, number one. You got to ask why. Why are things happening? Why are things not happening? So I'm glad that you mentioned that one. I know you work hard, but I know that you like to get away from work from time to time as well. And you've got some projects going on your farm out in outstate Missouri. What kind of projects do you have going on?
We always have a lot going on. I've been hunting mid-Missouri for the last, 15 or 20 years, I guess. Everybody kind of needs to figure out what you're interested in. And I grew up as a duck hunter, and I used to duck hunt quite a bit. I've been in upland game for a while, and I enjoy those things. But maybe 15 years ago, I started whitetail hunting. And, when I was growing up, we went whitetail hunting a little bit, my dad and brother and I remember my dad got us all Marlin 336 30-30s. Was my first deer gun. And I played around with deer hunting, but about 15 years ago, I really got seriously into it. And that's really all I think about now is I hunt for whitetails and turkeys. I do a trip out west I like mule deer hunting quite a bit. I worked with the Mule Deer Foundation as a volunteer for years. And I think that that's an important part of what I do. I love elk hunting. I went and shot my first moose last year. So I do other types of hunting, but I'm a fifth generation Missourian. I love to hunt my home state. I love to be on my own dirt. And to me, I think I take as much joy as hunting as just working with the land. So, this week we have a lot of land that we've, leased or some of it we own in mid-Missouri over the years. And I have always had projects, the Drury's, Mark and Terry Drury talk about how deer hunting is a 365-day proposition. And that's right. This week I was in clearing some land out for food plots in the woods. I had to clear a big dirt pile because the coyotes were using it as a den right off of one of my other food plots. I was improving the habitat around one of my ponds. I'm having Missouri Department of Conservation come in and help us with a water quality assessment of some of our ponds to make sure that they're set up well for growing fish there, because I want my nephews to be able to fish at our place. So there's always work to be done. And that to me is pretty interesting. I work at an office. Most of the day I'm at a desk. And so for me to be able to go out and start a chainsaw or to start a tractor and start putting seed in the ground or clearing trees away for a food plot, that to me is something I take as much joy in anymore as hunting.
And so hunting is such a big part of rural America. It's not all of it. I had an interesting conversation just the other day with a gentleman who's going to be on a later podcast, and he was talking about how he loves the outdoors and he grew up fishing as a kid, but he kind of lost interest in that, and he's never hunted, but he really sees himself as an outdoorsman because he just loves to be outdoors, loves nature, loves every good feeling that you get out of that. And that's something that we really have in bountiful supply out in rural America. So, the focus of our podcast is marketing in and to rural America. When I say that phrase, what's it mean to you?
So I guess, first of all, I am a rural person, right? I live outside the city limits. My home is outside the city limits and I'm in the county, and I kind of take pride in that, right? And I think that most of us who were raised on or around farms think that way. We take pride in where we're from. I lived in a lot of small towns growing up, but the town where I went to high school was about 5,000 people in Northeast Missouri. And I'm proud to be from Macon, Missouri. I like the people and I like the work ethic. And so I think when you think about marketing to rural Americans, I think, first of all, you got to understand who they are. And that's a little bit easier for people like you and me because that is us. We don't have to commission a marketing survey to figure that out, right? We know who we are. We know who our neighbors are. And I think that you got to market to them in the way that they see as authentic. We talked about authenticism before, and I think that's part of it. You got to certainly be there on the platforms that they want to engage with you. I think, 10, 20 years ago, that was a lot of outdoor television. I think people spend as much time probably on YouTube now, or more time on YouTube than they do watching outdoor television, because they can tailor it to what they're specifically interested in. Certainly, how-to content has become even more prevalent today. If you think about, 10, 20 years ago, you had to go ask your grandpa how to fix a leaky faucet. Right now, you just go to YouTube and you type in your search phrase. So I think that the way we look for information today is different, and you have to be prepared to speak to consumers in that way. So I think that marketing to rural Americans is a certain responsibility that goes along with that, to make sure that you're doing it in an authentic manner, because if you don't, the consumers are going to see right through that.
Yeah, well, that is all great insight. All great insight. Aaron, I've really enjoyed visiting with you today and reconnecting and catching up. What else would you like to share with our OutDrive audience today that you think they might find interesting or maybe inspiring?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that for us, I think that as a marketer, like I said before, I think that you need to have an authentic approach to speaking with your consumers. And I think that especially when you work in an enthusiast industry, there's not enough opportunities to do that in the world today. I get a lot of young people asking me, how do I get a job in the outdoor industry, right? Now, I think an important thing to say back to that is, why do you want to do this, right? Because I think in today's social media, people see the trophy shot of a deer that you shot, or a turkey that you shot, or a mess of catfish that you were able to get last weekend. And they think that that's Aaron's job, right? Aaron works in the outdoor industry. He hunts and fishes and shoots all the time. And, nobody takes a picture of themselves working at their desk at 6:30 at night because they're trying to meet an ad deadline, right? We don't do that. So you got to understand that working in the outdoor industry is just like another job, because it is a job. Now, there are some benefits that we get. I get to come and visit with you in your office today and talk to you about things that I'm pretty passionate about. That's a pretty unique opportunity, but it is still a job, and you have to be willing to work really hard at it. And so I think that's the one piece of information that I'd share with people who are always asking me, how do you get into this career? Well, first, kind of ask yourself, what is it that you really want to do? Because if you really do just want to hunt and fish all the time, I really can't help you get that job, because I'm not sure how to get it. If there was a way for me to do it, I probably would have tried to figure that out. But I get to work with great people. I get to work in an industry that I love. I get to work for a family that really takes care of us. And I get to work in an environment where I can bring my lab to work. And that's a pretty special thing to do. And I think that especially as you get older, you get more interested in helping the next generation really build that solid foundation so that they can succeed as well. And so I think you have to be open to that, especially as you get the gray hair in your beard like I have now.
Yeah. Boy, that's great advice. Great advice. Aaron, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciated our time together.
Great. Me too. Folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Aaron Oelger, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Hodgdon Powder. Come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America, where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on Outdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to ecallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, Outthink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.